difference, we make it clear.
Welcome back to the Spacepower podcast, where we explore the evolving role of space in national power and defense. Today, we're joined by Colonel Retired Dean Bellamy, Executive Vice President of National Security Space at Redwire Space. Dean's career spans decades of leadership in the U.S. Air Force and the national security space community, and now he's helping drive innovation from the commercial side. Dean, it's great to have you on the show.
Hey, Bill, I just want to say thank you. I really appreciate being on the show. It's really a pleasure to be on the podcast.
Let's start with your background. You've had an impressive career serving in the Air Force and working in national security space enterprise before joining Redwire. What led you from a military career into the commercial space sector?
After decades being in uniform, I saw firsthand, like you did, right, how critical space capabilities were and really the national defense, right? We got a chance to work with the Army and the Navy. We got a chance to work with civilian sector and even our allies, right, in Europe and other coalition partners. And coming into the commercial sector, I think was a natural extension of the work we did in national security. And really, it allows me to continue serving the Space Force and the Space Force mission. But now I get to accelerate those innovative and really delivering solutions for the Guardians, right? And really, because of that mission focus we had when we wore the uniform, we understand the imperative to deliver solutions faster than those traditional acquisition cycles we grew up with. At Redwire, it really offers me this opportunity to bridge my operational experience with delivering the cutting edge multi-domains technologies we're delivering today.
And let's talk a little bit about your time in uniform and how that influenced your approach to leading innovation and partnerships in the commercial space industry today. And specifically, just give us a broad overview of your career because it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. I appreciate that. I started out doing operations, and I had a chance to do the breadth where I did an operational assignment in each of the operational areas of the Space Force. The other option that a lot of people in our generation did was depth, where they would do one mission area and get a lot of depth in it. And I think what that breadth of operation showed me is really to instill discipline, right? The discipline that I saw, whether you're doing launch, you're doing satellite command and control, or you're actually doing one of the other mission areas, is mission focus, a deep respect for the partnerships that we had. When we were in the Air Force, and when I was in the Air Force, success depended upon collaboration, right? As you're talking to the services, the agencies, or those coalition partners. And I think that mindset is really carried over for me at Redwire. The need to build trust with government partners, be transparent in communications, be honest and disciplined. Like if we're delivering capabilities, that we're going to actually meet a schedule that we sign up for on IMS. It's really critical, and ensuring our innovations are aligned with those operational needs for the U.S. government, for the Space Force.
And Redwire has become a trusted name in mission critical space infrastructure and national security applications. Can you share what Redwire's focus is within the national security space sector?
Absolutely. Thanks for asking, Bill. So we're really a multi-domain company. We have defense tech. A lot of folks probably know we actually have uncrewed air systems that are actually flying and fighting in the war in Ukraine. So we go from really the UASs to space capabilities, and we have capabilities in very low Earth orbit, or VLEO, and we'll talk more about that today. We have capabilities flying in LEO, low Earth orbit, is all the way up to GEO and beyond. So we actually have capabilities and programs on the moon as well, and we'll talk about cislunar as well.
Yeah, I remember at Space Symposium this year. Hey, by the way, thanks for hosting SFA at the Red Mansion.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I remember I still have the t-shirt that says Shark Week. So, tell us
Yes.
a little bit about the satellites and how you named them sharks and kind of just an overview of what each of them does.
It's really fun. So we're kind of a fun company. And one of the neat things we chose to do is we wanted to name our satellites after sharks. So if you look at the attributes of the shark and the attributes of the satellite we're building, so in GEO, we have a mako shark, right? When you think of a mako, it's a really fast predator, apex predator, really lethal. And we are doing the same thing with our spacecraft. We're building a lot of the ability to do maneuverability, the ability to do refueling with them. And we'll talk about the refueling and really pioneering a really cool future there. And then I'll tell you, when you start looking at Thresher, which is our low Earth orbit satellite, it's really cool. If you've ever seen Thresher, Shark Week, I love, they breach over the water, but they're not static. And so we really like them. And we like the fact that we're offering the Guardians and the Space Force really apex predators that can go out and really contribute to warfighting.
It's cool. I really appreciated that t-shirt, and I thought it was really cool to host us there at Red Mansion, and really appreciated too the programming we were able to do at the Redwire booth during symposium. Really enjoyed having General Miller on stage, and then having that crashed by General Saltzman. So that was just
It
a
was
really good
great.
time.
I will tell you, we value the partnership with SFA. It is a tremendous organization. And what the SFA does for the Guardians is just first class and better than any other really association. And then when you start looking at the ability for people to contribute to the Space Force, whether you're in uniform or civil, in civies like we are now, or you're in college, there's a tremendous amount of ways to come in and really support and be a part. And SFA opens that door for people.
Yeah, I appreciate that sentiment, and couldn't agree more. SFA is a platform for anyone to get engaged to help our United States Space Force. Resilience has become a major topic in national security community. From your perspective, what does a resilient space architecture look like, and how is Redwire contributing to that effort?
So I'm glad you asked this question. This is a really important topic. And I think when you start looking for resilience and hybrid architectures, my first topic I want to talk about is very low Earth orbits, right? When you look at Redwire, we're pioneering right now capabilities to actually operate, and it's really a new domain. And by very low Earth orbit, I'm talking below 400 kilometers. So when you start looking at being able to go in there and operate and the benefits that it offers you or offers the Space Force, pretty tremendous. But then when you start looking about attributes like maneuverable spacecraft is another thing for resilience. Refuelable and compatible spacecraft that can be refueled, really important there, and we think it's really unique. I also think from a vantage point, the Guardians need to have the capability that gives them mission capabilities day to day and resilience in case of warfighting, right? None of us want to see that ever happen in space. But if it does happen, if an adversary does something that threatens, they have to have the ability to operate through space and provide capabilities from space to the ground and to the, actionable intelligence to the commanders on the ground.
And Redwire is known for integrating advanced manufacturing,
Yeah.
materials, and in-space infrastructure. How are these technologies helping close the gap between what we build on the ground and what we deploy in orbit?
Yeah, great question. So there's a capability or a program called Tetra 6, and that mission is with both the Space Force and AFRL, so with SSC and AFRL. And Redwire is proud to be delivering two Mako spacecraft for the Tetra 5 mission. It'll be actually the first spacecraft, as well as the Tetra 6, which is a follow mission, that will be the first spacecraft in geosynchronous orbit to be refueled and demonstrate compatible refueling with multiple refueling mechanisms. So it'll be the first bus they can refuel with multiple mechanisms. It's also going to do some other really interesting things that I think are really important for the Space Force. It's going to do cooperative and prepared inspection, docking. We're also going to do proximity operations, and it's a great way to train the Guardian operators. And we're actually building in next generation autonomy techniques that I believe will help on future missions for doing kind of on-orbit servicing capabilities. And I think what that leads to is I think the ability to have sustained space maneuvers, sustained combat power for the Space Force. And, I believe that, when you look at that, and then Tetra 6 will also deliver additional capabilities. I think we're looking at the ability to continue to bring space combat power capabilities for the Space Force.
It is exciting times over there at Redwire for sure.
It is. Yeah, it's great.
And you've seen firsthand how the government and commercial sectors interact in the national security space ecosystem. How do you
Yeah.
think those partnerships are evolving?
It's exciting. I actually think, and I actually tell people all the time, there's no better time to be working in the Space Force now and for the next 25 years. But one of the things that's exciting and really truly collaborative is I think on the contracting side, right? We're starting to see a shift in more like firm fixed price contracts. We're starting to see a shift kind of a more collaborative partnership nature with OTAs. And I actually think on the industry side, people are feeling like that the industry better understands the mission critical needs of the Space Force because of really SFA and others. And I think that what you see is this partnership that is becoming more iterative. And I see a shared risk and shared innovation across both the government, the Space Force, and industry.
Yeah, it's interesting that you talk about that shift because we're seeing now
Yeah,
the Secretary of War is talking
yeah,
about redefining acquisition processes because they have become antiquated just based on bureaucracy. So
absolutely.
what policy or acquisition changes could help accelerate innovation and strengthen collaboration between industry and government?
Yeah, I think continuing to streamline acquisitions, as we saw from the Secretary of War, I think, looking at expanding OTAs and the use of OTAs, I think the speed of acquisitions is important. I think that going from, hey, let's put small studies in place to go to experiments, to go to rapid prototyping, I think those are great tools that we can use and great ways to strengthen collaboration, but also get things up early. When I look at General Whiting, right, him and Chief Simmons, if they have to fight tonight or fight tomorrow night, what capabilities do they have? So if we can go from these studies to experiments to rapid prototyping, we can get more capability up for them so they can fight tomorrow night if needed.
Yeah, that whole study concept to rapid prototyping from early TRL or
Yeah,
low level TRL to high level TRL, just to be a demonstrator for
yeah.
the type of innovation we need to capture to create the future capabilities that we know the service needs. I think that's a great point, Colonel Bellamy. I appreciate that perspective. As space becomes more contested and competitive, what are your thoughts on international partnerships and how do those factor into Redwire's long-term strategy?
So international partnerships are really, I think, table stakes, right? We go to war and we fight wars in coalitions, right? We demonstrated that in the Gulf War, the first one that we both served in, and the second one. And those same coalition partners, I think General Saltzman does a great job saying how important it is to work with our partners. So I believe on the industry side, space is inherently global. Those international partnerships, I think, help actually expand resilience. And a good example of how they share with resilience could be even burden sharing, is one example, right? Providing both countries or multiple countries provide money for a pot of money to build one capability that serves all. I think it strengthens deterrence. It's really big. And I actually think that what we can do on the industry side to help the Space Force is we can start defining maybe common interfaces and standards, how we do interoperability for sharing and connecting for data, right? The ability to connect, access, and share data really hard. But the best we can do is provide a mechanism for the government so they can do that. And we can contribute to architectures that ultimately result in collective security for both the Space Force and our international partners and allies. I think is huge.
Great words in terms of data sharing. You hit that, the interoperability,
Yeah.
that's critical. And then I always think about the capability matrix that we could set up between the U.S. partners and allies and start to figure out, yeah, how
Yeah.
are they covering down on additional capability
Yeah.
and or providing gap coverage in the capabilities that we know we need.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you start thinking, right, if we're going to build, you look at, I know a lot of people are talking about the GSAP follow-on. What better way would be instead of UK building their own system or Australia building their own system, that there would be a burden sharing where you build one system here in the US that supports the needs of not only the US, the Space Force, but allied partners. And you have mechanisms like the CSPOC and others to sit there and support them, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great. And then, let's bring the CASR discussion
Yeah.
into this, the commercial
Yeah.
augmentation
Yeah.
space reserve. And you say, all right, when does the Space Force need to buy a complete system versus when could the Space Force examine uh, buying capability or leasing capability out from an existing commercial system? So you have multi-use capability technologies that are supporting the Space Force when necessary and supporting commercial when necessary.
It's great, right? And by the way, it works well in the air domain today, right?
Yeah, that's
And
right.
for it definitely works also in the space domain.
Yeah. So looking ahead, Colonel Bellamy, what are the major changes you expect to see in the national security space over the next decade?
Yeah, I would say I think the first major change we're going to see is today where VLEO's kind of that territory, that domain where no one really operates. I think you're going to see multiple programs. VLEO is really exciting, and I can walk through the value that VLEO has. But I think you're going to see multiple VLEO operational programs because it provides really a hybrid architecture and allows us to take some of the capabilities we have today in LEO. You can fly them in VLEO, or you can move them up to MEO. And I think that what it allows to do is there'll be certain missions, certain capabilities that even if you start looking at multi-domain, where you start looking at satellites to maybe air or satellites to the ground or even to maritime, where you've got capabilities for resilience. And it can be everything from communications to GPS to ISR to other.
I love how you keep bringing up multi-domain operations.
Yeah.
Not many people are following, because very small percentage of the Americans understand that there is a Space Force, which is part of the reason why we do this, conversations like these, to help get the word out. But then people don't realize how critical the Space Force is to multi-domain operations. And when we say multi-domain, people might not understand. It's when you take the Air Force, the Navy, the Marine Corps, the Coast Guard, the Army, and the Space Force, all are reliant on technologies in, from, and to space. So people don't understand that all the time, and it's very interesting.
Oh, it is. I mean, we go back and look at General Saltzman's career, right, when he was a one-star and two-star, but when he moved over there to support, the coalition forces and learn on
Yeah.
how we do that, I think that's a huge reason why he's on the job today. That because we're got a lot of people, soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, Coast Guards that are going to be relying on this data at the speed of need, speed of relevance, right? And we've got to be there for them.
Yeah, 100%. So speaking of that, you talked about the importance of the orbital regime,
Yeah.
and VLEO is what you're referring to. So let's now
Yeah.
talk about technologies or capabilities, and what are those that you believe will have the greatest impact on both orbital operations and terrestrial defense strategies?
So I know there are a lot of naysayers who don't believe in refueling a spacecraft, and I know both sides of the argument. Some people think that with Starship it'll be cheaper just to launch more spacecraft. I believe when you look at the access to space, and I believe space logistics, I believe refueling spacecraft will be a game changer, and here's why. I believe our guardians today, if they knew that they could operate spacecraft and there was a refueler nearby, and they did not have to constrain operations or tactics or TTPs based on fuel, and they could actually get after the fight and operate the way they need to operate operationally, that I think refueling opens that up. I think the ability to already be on orbit, and if you need to do a maneuver, you can do a maneuver. If you need on the gas and you need to be somewhere in like 100 kilometers in a short period of time, you get on the gas, you expend it because you can go back and get refueled. I really believe it'll change tactics, it'll change how we employ systems. And I believe that we'll look back just like the same thing on air, where the air refueling has created this bridge, which is extended logistics, right? And if I think that refueling, once it becomes commonplace, it's going to open up how our guardian and operators can actually use satellites today for both space protection, space defense, as well as more normal day-to-day operations.
And that whole refueling
Yeah,
concept goes back
yeah,
to interoperability, meaning, what are the standards
yeah.
for refueling mechanisms? How do we do that? So I think it's extremely interesting, and I couldn't agree more. When you think about terrain from an operational standpoint, how do you see the role of manufacturing, logistics, and ground infrastructure evolving to support space missions?
So I think the biggest one's going to be AI and autonomy, right? So if you start looking at today on the Earth, how NVIDIA and other companies are doing with AI autonomy, and how do we take that and we put it on board the spacecraft? One example would be, I believe we will see in the near future spacecraft that you look at the bus operations, where the spacecraft, almost like a Tesla's automobile today, can almost self-drive itself. I think we can put in the orbit and the basic day-to-day routine functions to have the spacecraft predominantly fly itself in a routine orbit with an operator on the loop and an operator watching. And I think what that offers from this kind of terrain infrastructure to space missions is that you get your patches and your weapons school grads focus on warfighting and not maintaining, and them and the operators in OA is not worrying about maintaining the bus and the bus functions, where they can actually get after the payload and the needs for the combatant commanders. So I think that's where you're going to see autonomy moving up in a lot of the bus functions. I think there'll be some in the payloads as well. And I believe there'll be some in the comm side, but I see that AI ML being a key game changer.
Yeah, I agree. And what you're talking about is harvesting limited manpower resources that currently plague the Space Force in terms of the end strength that it currently has to work with, and saying, let's pivot some of those folks to more of those war fighting tasks in order to ensure space superiority. So that's
It's
a great
huge.
point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you've got to do it for space purity. And if you start looking at it, our operators today and our guardians are probably our most precious resource. And how do we utilize them every day, right?
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah.
You've led teams in both the military and private sector. What leadership principles have guided you throughout your career?
There are a lot of amazing principles, but integrity is the first one I look at, right? We talked about this. It was one of our Air Force core values, but I look at it today, whether I'm in uniform or where I'm now in industry, integrity is so critical, right? If we sign a contract and we have a schedule that says we're going to deliver a capability at a certain time, we need to do that. And if our schedule changes, we've got to be honest brokers, and we've got to have that integrity to let the government know, hey, we're running behind, we're late, or we're ahead of schedule if we're ahead of schedule. So I think integrity is really the number one leadership principle I have, that honesty, because it comes with transparent communications and everything else.
That's a good point. And quite honestly, we're going to be talking, we're part of this podcast is getting out to those folks who might be transitioning from the Space
Yeah.
Force and they want to get into the commercial sector. So for those aspiring to work in national security space, whether they're service members, engineers, or entrepreneurs, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, I would say coming from as a like we both, right, after we transition, it is so rewarding and I believe deeply rewarding coming over to industry and taking that same kind of knowledge as camaraderie, esprit de corps, and leadership, coming over here and helping to deliver capabilities, and you're still delivering it for the same mission, and you're delivering it, and to me, it is so rewarding. The relationships you have, the relationships you'll build on the industry side, I think are pretty, very rewarding. The one thing I would say is, hey, find a mentor, seek a mentor who's somebody who's transitioned recently, ask them, the best ways, and they will help you adapt quickly. And I will say there's so many spots in industry for you to come in and make a difference. And we're excited. It's going to be an amazing time of your life when you transition, and you're going to come in and on this side now.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, what we're working on here at SFA is one, you can go in and when you get your membership, you can sign up to be a mentor or be a mentoree. You can either be mentored by folks or you can provide mentorship to folks. So that's one of the things we offer here at SFA. Another is let's help develop a transition program for folks coming out of the Space Force so that they're better prepared for commercial integration and create an opportunity to educate the commercial sector on what to expect from Space Force Guardians as well.
I love that. I love that. And I think that what's going to make us both better is having this blend of people who kind of move back and forth. And I love the ideas and what you're doing on the Space Force Association side. SFA creating this mentor mentee list is really critical. Terminology such as what does this job title mean? What exactly am I doing is so critical to actually understand that.
That's for sure. Dean, as we close out, what excites you most about Redwire's mission and the future of national security space?
Well, first, I want to just say being a partner with SFA is critical. And if folks out there aren't a member of SFA, you need to be. If you haven't joined SFA, you definitely need to be. If you haven't had a chance to go to Space Power in December, it is a tremendous event. I actually hold it as probably our top event of the year. And you get a chance to celebrate the Space Force's birthday. So if you're not going, please look out. And it's SFA. You can go just Google SFA Space Power 2025, and it'll pop up, and you can register. As far as the Redwire's mission, I have to tell you, we're really focused on the mission. We're really excited about the technology front, whether the work stuff we're doing in VLEO, the digital engineering work we're doing, or the work we're doing in GEO. I think the journey we're on is really about ensuring our nation, the Space Force, and really those allies remain secure. And we realize that we have a part to play, and we're excited about that part. And we're excited, about helping the Guardians ensure our protection and space and our way of life.
Yeah, not many people know this, but we touch space 50 times a day. And if we didn't have that, it would
Yeah.
completely change the way we interact in our day-to-day life. So let's keep freedom of action in the space domain relevant. Let's keep talking about space power. I'm looking forward to talking once again, hosting the Space Power podcast at the Redwire stage at Space
Woohoo!
Power 25. So looking forward to the programming that we have on schedule for that, which is going to be very lively. This generation is the first space native generation. That means they've never known not having space technology at their fingertips. And so even more important.
It is more important. Can you imagine that? They've never known a day without space. We can't afford to have a situation
That's
where
right.
we can't afford that.
That's right.
Um, Bill, really excited about it, excited about what we're going to do and the momentum we're going to build to close out and celebrate the Space Force's birthday in a few weeks. And also look forward to, really the great things the Space Force and we in industry are going to do over in 2026.
Yeah, really do appreciate your partnership. Colonel Bellamy, thank you for joining us and for sharing your insights. Redwires continues to play a critical role in shaping the future of national security space, and it's been great hearing your perspective. For those listening, you can learn more about Redwire at redwirespace.com. This has been the Space Power Podcast. Until next time, I'm Bill Wolf. Thanks for listening.
We make it clear.